Let's go to Spain now, where a fire in a nightclub in the southern city of Murcia has killed at least 13 people. Journalist Simon Hunter joins us from Spain now. So, Simon, what is the latest on the casualty figure? Is it still 13 at this point?
Absolutely, yeah. The death toll has not risen from yesterday, but it's very unclear as to how many people are still missing, how many people are accounted for. It seems the latest reports this morning suggest that there are 5 people still unaccounted for. There were 24 people left with minor injuries with burns and smoke inhalation, and only 3 of the victims have so far been identified. Such was the force of the fire.
At this stage, late on from the fire itself, are we any clearer as to what happened?
No, and the investigators are saying it could take weeks to determine exactly how the fire broke out. The damage is such, in particular to the because it was actually 3 nightclubs that were affected. It was the Fonda Milagros where the fire started, but the fire then ripped through the 2 adjoining nightclubs. There are suggestions that it may have been a lighting system that started the fire in the Fonda Milagros. Also, videos are circulating of patrons in the nightclub with flares and sparklers, and also reports are saying that it was likely the actual, well, first of all, the structure of the nightclub that could have caused the fire to propagate so quickly, but also the decoration. And this is very similar to a case that we had very recently in Madrid, where a restaurant went up in flames. It was a restaurant that was decorated with all kind of plastic flowers hanging from the ceiling, hanging from the walls. And apparently the suggestion is that the similar decorations in the Fonda Milagros nightclub could have contributed to the fire spreading so quickly. And the worst affected part of where the victims were is in these what they call reservados, which is kind of like rooms that you can hire for private parties, which was up on the first floor. And witnesses are saying that the access to those rooms was a complete maze, a complete labyrinth. There was only one staircase to get to that area. So now, of course, the question is, did these nightclubs, in particular the Fonda Milagros, where the fire was worst, did these nightclubs have all of their licenses in order? Had they passed their inspections? Did they have enough emergency exits that should have helped to prevent a tragedy such as this one from happening?
Yeah, lots of questions indeed. Were they very packed? Did most people get out?
Yes, most people got out. The other 2 nightclubs were properly evacuated. I don't think this. I think the reports are saying that all of the victims, maybe except for one, were in the Fonda Milagros. So they were still very busy, and they were still very busy at 6 a.m. in the morning. I mean, nightclubs in Spain don't tend to start to fill up until sort of 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. There is a report saying that the nightclubs did have in place were licenses to operate until 7 o'clock in the morning. The fire didn't break out until just after 6. So at least in that aspect, they were respecting their licenses. But yeah, they were packed. All of the videos circulating on social media and in the media here in Spain after the fire broke out show just scores of people in the streets. So yeah, they were still very busy. And this all happened in an area on the outskirts of Murcia city, which is it's full of nightclubs. It's kind of like an industrial estate that's full of nightclubs, concert venues, bowling alleys, fast food restaurants, very popular with the Latin American community. And it seems that most of the victims were from the Latin American community.
Right. And really harrowing reading stories of messages left for loved ones saying that they feared they were going to die. There must be great shock across Spain, is there, Simon?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, everyone is very shocked. There's not been a fire like this in a nightclub in Spain with so many victims since 1990. That happened in Zaragoza. There were 43 people killed in a nightclub called Flying. The worst ever fire in a nightclub happened in the early 80s in Madrid, when 81 people died in a nightclub called Alcalá 20. But this is the thing. I mean, this is something that you would think is something from the past. This is something that now the proper regulations would be in place to stop this from happening. The proper emergency exits would be in place so that people could get out. But an expert in fire prevention has spoken to one of Spain's newspapers, El Español, and he basically said it's God's will that this doesn't happen more often. Many nightclubs in Spain are in old buildings. They're poorly lit. There are insufficient emergency exits. And of course, there are some that are operating that are completely illegal. They don't have a license. They might be operating in a residential building. And of course, if there were a fire in one of those establishments, there would be people in the building who would be asleep, and there could be an even worse tragedy. So I think after this incident, and also what happened in Madrid earlier this year in the restaurant I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of questions asked about whether the authorities are doing enough to monitor these kind of establishments and to stop something like this from happening again.
Simon, thank you very much. Simon Hunter on the line from Madrid. It's 7:17.